Wind, rain, flooding, hail, even tornadoes. Ohio sees it all. And severe weather season is fast approaching. But even before the first siren sounds.
If you're out near the outlet malls on 71, that's where we are really seeing a dangerous situation.
Our Doppler 10 team is working to keep you safe. But while forecasting is done here, I keep stepping on shards of glass from windows within this neighborhood. We know the real story is out there.
It went through in 5 minutes. It didn't take long. It went through and took everything out.
It's all about Central Ohio, this community, you, your family, and friends. The races, games, and events that bring us all together. And from sunup to sundown, it's our goal to keep you safe. Tonight, we are stepping out of the Weather Center and away from the green screen, right into Central Ohio to the people we serve, you and your family. Welcome to our severe weather special ahead of the storm. I'm Chief Meteorologist Ashley Barassi. Tonight, our entire Doppler 10 team is here to prepare you for the unexpected.
Yeah, and a lot of that unexpected weather comes in the spring and summer months. Hi, I'm Jeff Booth.
And I'm Ross Caruso. Tonight we show you how we keep you safe and which weather can be most dangerous.
And one of the areas hit hardest by the unexpected this past year was Dayton.
There it is. It's hitting Shelby right now.
They can pack the most powerful winds on Earth, and the Buckeye State knows the damage they can cause all too well. Tornadoes can strike any time of the year, but around here they're most common in the spring and early summer. The Memorial Day tornado outbreak of 2019 underscores this fact all too well. A total of 21 tornadoes hit the Buckeye State in the evening and overnight hours. That included an EF4 that hit Dayton with 170-mile-per-hour winds. The storms weakened a little before dropping 3 tornadoes in central Ohio from southern Pickaway County into western Hocking County.
If you're out near the outlet malls,
10 TV was on air covering the storms for over 4 hours. Events like these are rare in central Ohio. Most of our tornadoes are fast-moving spin-up tornadoes, like the one that hit East Columbus in the fall of 2018. It was an EF1 tornado with maximum winds of 90 miles per hour. Frank Judvolkis woke up to that damage on the morning of September 26th.
It's getting light, and it's like we had just bombed. Neighbors I've never seen are out on the street saying, "What happened?"
Even though these tornadoes are weaker than the ones that dominate the headlines, they come without much warning, if any at all. And the majority of these spin-ups occur in the Ohio Valley.
When we get tornadic activity, the vast majority of them are not from supercell thunderstorms, they're from lines of thunderstorms. And that process of tornadogenesis forms very quickly and they move very rapidly, which makes them very difficult to warn with any advanced lead time.
and that's what makes these types of tornadoes so dangerous. They can happen on the order of minutes, which means that by the time they're detected and verified, they can be over. We don't know exactly how they form, but it's believed that as a line of storms approaches, it interacts with small-scale winds at the surface. If conditions are just right, a tornado can spin up.
The tornado went through like that. We were very fortunate. Nobody was injured.
90 to 95% of the tornadoes that hit central Ohio are these types of spin-ups. And even though they're tough to warn, most of the storms that produce them have a severe thunderstorm warning issued when they hit. So heeding that warning can save your life.
As for the folks in Dayton, the cleanup continues nearly 10 months later. Snap trees painting a landscape behind me and mud on the grounds of where an apartment complex used to stand. This was that apartment complex after an EF4 ripped through Montgomery County on Memorial Day. But there are ways you can try to prevent storm damage. For starters, it can be as simple as planting trees.
We've seen in a lot of circumstances where if you have trees at the right amount of distance, where it's not too close to the house where the trees fall on a house, then they might almost create like a wind shadow where the winds are reduced on the house.
Meteorologist Brian Wood with Assurance surveys storm damage and the impact it has on home and business owners.
Most people would consider a total loss in the general public as seeing a home blown away. That's obviously a total loss. There's no home left. But for a lot of houses, all it can take is just the roof being removed or part of the roof being removed, because then the rainfall gets in. Especially with tornadic storms, you tend to have a lot of rain also in the area. So if part of the roof comes off and then the interior of the house is exposed, now you have rain coming down the drywall and the carpet. Everything gets wet, everything gets damaged, and you have to scrap everything, even if the house and the walls might still be standing.
To possibly prevent damage like this, take these steps suggested by disastersafety.org when tornadoes are expected in your area. Close all windows, exterior doors, garage doors, and interior doors to keep out flying debris and help keep the roof on. It is a myth that you should open windows during a tornado. Openings allow air pressure to build up inside a structure like a balloon. This puts internal pressure on the roof, and once the roof fails, the entire structure can fail within seconds. Promptly remove any debris in your yard or surrounding your business, such as tree trimmings, to reduce the risks of flying debris during high winds. Also, secure any parts of fencing that appear weakened or loose. High winds can easily dislodge boards and pieces from a fence, also creating flying debris. And when thunderstorms are in the forecast, remove loose objects outside, such as lawn furniture, signs, garbage cans, and potted plants. If you are remodeling or building a new house, consider this.
Having straps that connect the roofs to the walls or reinforcing weak points of the house, which tend to be the garage door if you have an attached garage, that is the weakest part of a house. And it can blow in 60, 70, 80 mile an hour winds. It doesn't take a lot. And so reinforcing a garage door can cost an extra $100 or $200, but that can save your house from damage.
In the wake of tornadoes are different types of damage surveys. One is to determine if there was actually a tornado and how strong it was. Andy from the National Weather Service in Wilmington explains how that process works.
What we see on the radar is helpful to determine a general idea of how strong a tornado is, but to actually make a rating decision on the enhanced Fujita scale requires looking at the damage caused to structures, caused to trees, businesses, homes, and things like that. And based on the amount of damage that's caused to those structures, we're able to estimate wind speeds of the tornado.
That's why we often don't have confirmation until hours, if not days later, to allow time for the National Weather Service survey teams to assess the damage and rate it.
Most people don't realize a tornado can happen at any time. Ohio has seen one in every month, but they are most common April through July.
And in any season, but especially around now, Ohio weather can change in an instant. Sunshine one minute, downpours the next. Makes it pretty hard to plan a weekend or even your day, really.
And that heavy rain can be a real game changer. So what does an inch of rain look like? Coming up, I'll show you how much rain it would take to cover the entire capital city.
Here's another weather fact you may not know. What is the most common weather-related natural disaster? The answer, flooding. You may think of high water as several feet, but an inch of water can do its own share of damage. Ross Caruso explains.
You hear meteorologists talk about rainfall amounts all the time. Like the graphics behind me, we're always referring to amounts that come through the National Weather Service and trained storm spotters. A lot of times, they come from rain gauges that look just like this. And if you were to read this, you would see that there's close to about an inch of rain. Now, if we were to take this bowl, for example, and measure it, it would also come in close to an inch. But obviously, there's more liquid content in this bowl than in the rain gauge. That's because the volume of the water is greater in the bowl than the rain gauge itself. So how much is an inch of rain really? Well, to understand this, let's take a trip down the road to one of Ohio's oldest impoundments, Buckeye Lake. According to the Ohio Department of Natural Resources, the lake was constructed around 1830, primarily to provide water for the extensive canal system being constructed throughout the state at the time. Buckeye Lake survives today as a popular recreational lake.
Another interesting fact about Buckeye Lake is that it holds about 4.5 billion gallons of water, which honestly is kind of hard to imagine, even in my head, but it will prove useful in this explanation.
Now let's play out a hypothetical situation, and to make math easy, let's say 1.2 inches of rain falls over Columbus, which is roughly 223 square miles. With that amount of rain falling over such a large area, the math tells us that it's equal to about 4.5 billion gallons of water, which is roughly the amount of water content in Buckeye Lake at principal spillway level. Now imagine taking Buckeye Lake and dumping it over the city of Columbus. Granted, this is an extreme scenario and is merely for demonstrative purposes. The point is that during heavy rain events, that 1 inch or more of rain that falls in your backyard usually includes a much larger area, which could sometimes cause flooding, and if it falls fast enough, flash flooding is also possible. Not only could that impact you, your neighbor,
but in some cases, your entire community.
One severe weather event that doesn't always get as much attention is flooding. Over the past 10 years, 16 flood-related deaths have been reported in the state of Ohio, and over that same time period, we had 11 tornado-related deaths reported. Now, one type of flooding that's particularly dangerous is flash flooding. That's because it can happen really quickly. By definition, a flash flood occurs within 6 hours of an event, and that event could be a dam failure, it could be an ice jam, but in most cases, it's a heavy rainfall. Now, if you ever encounter fast-moving water, don't underestimate its power. That's because water has something known as momentum. Once you get it moving, it's tough to stop, and 6 inches of water is enough to knock you off your feet, and if you happen to fall face first, well, you may actually be knocked out and drowned before you come to. Now with cars, it only takes about a foot of water to float most of them. 2 feet of water will float most SUVs or trucks, and that's how a lot of flood-related deaths occur. People happen to get into dangerous water, they get into a situation and they can't get out of it. Now, if you think about it too, when that rain really falls really fast and really heavy, a couple of inches can also run off and easily rise to 4, maybe even 5 feet, which is why if you ever encounter water of unknown depth or fast-moving water, you should heed the National Weather Service's warning and turn around, don't drown.
No green screen, no technology. We are right in the middle of nature at Scioto Audubon Metro Park. We want to go beyond flooding and beyond tornadoes tonight because they are not the only threat. Up next, Ross Caruso shows us the damage wind can do to your home. Obviously, in the wake of the storm, the cleanup is going to take some time, so our thoughts are with this community.
Now we're in East Columbus, maybe a mile away from that spot, and well, I'll tell you what, it looks a lot differently. And actually, this is the worst of the damage I've seen.
We say we're everywhere, and when severe weather hits, we leave the weather center behind and head out into the damage.
Out of the weather center and into the metro parks. You are why we do what we do.
But to keep you safe, we need some help. Ashley Barrissey explains the technology keeping us all ahead of the storm.
10 TV is the only station in town with a live functioning Doppler radar. What that means, the images on our radar are 5 to 8 minutes faster than the other guys. The concept of radar grew out of the principles of radio, in which waves bounce off of things they encounter. In fact, the word radar is actually an acronym standing for Radio Detection and Ranging. In a nutshell, this is how Doppler radar works. First things first, let's say this is you. You're standing there and way far away is an approaching train. As the sound waves travel from the train to where you're standing, it sounds quiet at first because it's so far away. As the train comes closer, the sound waves become more compacted and closer together, making it sound louder to you, which could get alarming. In the same way, let's say we have a thunderstorm. At this point, it's still far away, and of course, it's raining. Well, that's where our Doppler radar comes in handy. It's sending out waves until they eventually run into that storm. The waves bounce off and return to the Doppler, and once they get back, based on the time it takes for the waves to return and how compact the waves are, the Doppler is able to judge the distance, the size, and the motion of the storm, which is translated to the image you see at home.
In the coming weeks, you're going to hear more about tornado and severe thunderstorm watches and warnings, but what exactly are they? Well, first off, those watches are actually issued out of Norman, Oklahoma at the Storm Prediction Center. When severe weather approaches our area, it's the local National Weather Service offices that monitor it, and they issue warnings as necessary. A tornado warning is issued when a funnel cloud or a tornado is reported by a trained spotter, or we have tornadic signatures show up on the radar and we have an environment that's favorable for tornadoes. A severe thunderstorm warning is issued when a storm is believed to have hail that's at least 1 inch in diameter and wind gusts that are at least 58 miles an hour. So simply put, when we are talking about watches, that means that we have conditions that are favorable for a type of severe weather event. When a warning is issued, that means that event is happening or it's imminent, and that's when it's time to seek shelter.
Whether in the event of a weak tornado or straight line winds, it doesn't take much to damage your home. This is video from the Insurance Institute for Business and Home Safety, where they test how structures withstand strong wind events and other weather scenarios. Winds are climbing in excess of 100 miles per hour in this video. The garage is often one of the weakest parts of a household structure, allowing for winds to easily break through and attack the rest of the garage. Now look at these winds against a mobile home. The carport detaches from the structure, allowing for the wind to eventually tear off the entire roof. Winds in the video only topped off around 80 miles an hour. Now imagine what would happen if you were outside during these types of events. Don't worry, I'll save you the trouble. We're going to be going inside this wind tunnel, and I'm going to be testing out the force that you could feel during the event of a severe thunderstorm or even a tornado. This state-of-the-art wind tunnel is located at the Aerospace Department at the University of Michigan, where they typically use this 5 by 7 foot wind tunnel to obtain aerodynamic data. But we're just trying to figure out how strong of winds I can take head-on in the event of a strong storm. Winds weren't much of an issue at first, but I started feeling myself being pushed back after about 30 to 40 miles per hour. After that, it was becoming difficult to hear. Winds were now up to 60 miles an hour, and I had to brace my entire body. After 70 miles per hour, I had to hold on to my harness as I started to lose my footing. Then, once winds got to 90, upwards of 100 miles per hour, I could feel my face moving, and it felt like I could be blown away at any instant. That's when I knew I had to call it quits. We talked about wind and rain, but what happens if it all hits while you're out and about? Ashley shows us the emergency plans already in place.
When surrounded by 100,000 fans in the shoe, it's not always easy to quickly take cover when inclement weather rolls in.
We seen the clouds rolling in, and it started coming down pretty good.
Many opt to shelter in place or take shelter on the concourse. This was the soaking rain in 2016 when the Buckeyes were playing Tulsa. A storm packing strong winds, heavy rain, and lightning delayed the game for more than an hour. From the football field to the baseball diamond, this heavy rainstorm blew over Huntington Park in 2011. Sometimes the storms call for more than a rain delay.
In all my years here, we've only ever had to really react to an emergency and empty or clear the grandstand one time.
It was because of a tornado warning. When bad weather is looming, Columbus Clippers general manager Ken Schnocky and his team watch our play-by-play of storms on the radar.
Imminent danger from weather is something we're always cognizant of.
So when sitting here watching America's favorite pastime, where do you go and what do you do when told to clear the grandstand? The Franklin County Sheriff's Office breaks it down into stages depending on the severity and timing. First, moving the fans onto the concourse behind the brick facade.
And then if things get a little more intense, then getting them down to the lower level where they're below ground level would be the next step.
From the seats to the streets.
Step away from metal and seek shelter. This is the order of the Columbus Police and our safety officials.
The Cap City Half Marathon has its own set of challenges.
And we have 8 different shelter locations in case there's lightning or other instances that would require us to stop the event.
The event is planned rain or shine, but in 2017, lightning caused race director David Babner and his safety team to black flag the course.
When we started the event in 2004, we started with a flag warning system, so to alert all the runners, because once the runners have started, they're out on the course.
From one kind of course to another, the Memorial Tournament is known to have rain what seems like almost every year. A golf course is truly a different kind of beast. At Muirfield, you need to observe the leaderboards for weather warning signs that appear prior to inclement weather. We've talked about tornadoes, rain, flooding, and even wind. On a sunny day like this, it's hard to imagine all of that in your backyard, but it happens, and it happens often. So how can you help? Coming up next, the role you can play in keeping your neighbors and all of Central Ohio ahead of the storm.
During a thunderstorm, it is best to take shelter inside a house, structure, or a hardtop, fully enclosed vehicle. But as one of these options may not be available to you, your safety may depend on knowing the difference between these lightning myths and the facts. Myth number 1, lightning never strikes the same place twice. Fact is, lightning often strikes the same place repeatedly, especially if it's a tall, pointy, isolated object. For example, the Empire State Building is hit nearly 25 times a year. Myth number 2, if it's not raining or there aren't any clouds overhead, you're safe from lightning. Fact is, lightning often strikes more than 3 miles from the center of a thunderstorm, far outside the rain or thunderstorm cloud. Strikes can even occur 10 to 15 miles outside the core of the storm. Myth number 3, heat lightning occurs after very hot summer days and poses no threat. Actually, heat lightning is just a term used to describe lightning from a thunderstorm that is just too far away for the thunder to be heard. Myth number 4, if trapped outside and lightning may strike, I should lie flat on the ground. Actually, lying flat increases your chance of being affected by potentially deadly ground current. If you are caught outside in a thunderstorm, keep moving toward a safe shelter. And myth number 5, if outside in a thunderstorm, you should seek shelter under a tree to stay dry. And the factor is, being underneath a tree is the second leading cause of lightning casualties. Keep moving toward a safe shelter. And as always, if you hear thunder, you are likely within striking distance of the storm. Just remember, when thunder roars, go indoors.
It's our goal to fight misinformation from putting people in harm's way, and we try to do that morning, noon, and night with our forecasts.
But sometimes we could use a little help, maybe an extra set of eyes where the storm is happening. And with a little work, you could be that person.
The radar that the National Weather Service uses doesn't see as close to the ground, and so the weather spotters are their eyes. So they may see something that their radar may not pick up.
Ed Little is a trained weather spotter in Marysville, Ohio. Spotters are everyday folks who are simply interested in weather. After all, weather affects everyone, every day, and it changes by the minute.
When a storm front comes through, and I keep my eye out in that area.
Meteorologists rely on trained spotters like Cheryl to relay what's happening in their neighborhoods, giving us the knowledge to be hyper-local with our forecasts.
I'm looking difference in the clouds, checking to see if there's any rotation.
Oftentimes, extreme weather events are what pique people's interest.
Because my parents' home was destroyed in 1974 in Xenia by the tornado.
One time when I was a Boy Scout, when they had a tornado in Radnor, I had to go pick a barn out of the middle of a 203.
And now, John is a spotter in Richwood. All it takes to become a trained spotter is to attend a class put on by the National Weather Service. It's no more than 2 hours, free, and open to the public. A meteorologist discusses techniques and safety for severe weather spotting and how to report to them. The goal?
Hopefully it saves more lives, because the tornado down in Tennessee lost 19 people. And I like to make sure that doesn't happen here.
You can go to weather.gov to find a class near you. Everything we've shown you tonight is to keep you safe. You are why we do what we do, all of Central Ohio.
From first thing in the morning until the last thing at night, and 24/7 on your phone, we've got the most accurate forecast in your neighborhood and our entire community.
You may think you've seen it all tonight, but believe it or not, we've just scratched the surface. You can find all this, plus some extra clips from our Doppler 10 team at 10tv.com/aheadofthestorm, and sign up for alerts on the 10TV app.
And we will keep working day and night to make sure you have the knowledge you need on 10TV.